I was, planning to talk about circular economy. Now, why is this? Because I think that in a country like Albania, but in the Balkan in general, since a lot of the industry went down, and since on the other hand they are looking for foreign direct investments, but the foreign direct investments will not fill the entire gap of unemployment. So you have to be creative also. And it came up that since 2 years now we are traveling around in this neighborhood, and we are confronted, thanks to Louisa and thanks to Nello, I have been confronted with younger people at the universities and even in Berat in a gymnasium in the last years. And this is the post-war and the post-revolution generation. They don't know what it was all about. But what they know it is all about is that it is about technology and independence and creativity. And so you have to involve them also in your strategic scheme of how can we boost employment. And that requires, of course, a way of thinking and possibilities and looking for possibilities that are not where older people are not so very sensitive about. So one of the things I'm treating is the Internet of Things, and you see the eyes of the young people blink because this is something they understand and they know what it is all about. But on top of that, it doesn't require so many investments, so much investment to do something. Creating an app and promoting the app and seeing what the app is doing is something that you do not have to leave to the Americans or to the British or to the Western Europeans. Everybody in the world can do it. And there can be regional and local applications also. Another one is circular economy. Circular economy is, for me, is a mindset. But I see that even here, the mindset starts to take place. Nello, can you take the first? Actually, my revered colleague Stanislav had been talking yesterday already about the sustainability. And sustainability is already an old word. But when I was young, and when I was at university in 1973, there was this guy that has been writing a book, Small is Beautiful. Schumacher has been writing a book, Small is Beautiful. It was one of the books that was at our desk. And it was not a big book either, but what the guy said was, guys, take care of your globalization, because globalization comes together often with exhausting all natural resources we have. And if you deplete the world of natural resources in such a pace, then at the end we will start to have a problem. In those days, nobody listened. We had the Club of Rome, and the Club of Rome was hitting in our face that there would be no petrol anymore by the end of the century. They were wrong, but then on the other hand, the Club of Rome was not talking about all the pollution, or was not treating the pollution, but they were in the first place treating about the depletion of natural resources. So Schumacher pleaded for a sustainable economy, an economy where you do not continue to use new things, but where you start to reuse things. And we see now, because, and I think, let's say, the last 10 years, we see a movement about sustainability not in the first place for the natural resources, but in the first place because this is less polluting. And we start to have problems with climate change and with pollution. We saw the example yesterday. We start to have a movement now that in the beginning people who claimed that you should reuse things were lunatics. But you start to have a movement now, a mindset with people that this is the only way you should go. And that you should start initiatives in all the directions in order to reuse waste, reuse used products, do things yourself again, and think much more smaller. On the other hand, you have your globalization, and probably you need your globalization. But on the other hand, you need to go back again to local economy and boost and promote local economy. Nell, can I have the next one? This sustainability is a taina. The taina means there is no alternative. Which means that if you look at the fashion industry, for example, this is the world's second most polluting industry in the world after oil and gas. Nobody knows, nobody thinks about that. But jeans are made of cotton, and cotton requires 25% of all the insecticides of the world. Jeans requires aggressive chemicals, and these chemicals are very polluting. And then 10,000 liters of water are required per jeans pant. 10,000 liters of water. So fashion is the most polluting industry in the world. Why not? Yeah? And why is this? Because we want to wear the same thing. If we do it locally, if we do not wear jeans but are alternatives, but if you start looking at that, if you start to reuse clothes, you can reduce that drastically. Now look at that. So I use the word reuse. It's more than only reuse. When we start talking about circular economy, the definition is use raw materials, use energy, water, space, and food more efficiently by smartly closing your usage circle. That means that even water, you start using your water again. You start reusing your energy. And we make a distinction between biological material and technical material. And the last word I'm not going to say it, but the region I'm coming from is promoting this. Holland and Belgium are promoting this way of thinking drastically because we think on the first stance that this is very good for the world, but on the other hand, you create an enormous amount of employment on a very small scale. Now, here you can see the double circuit. On the one hand, you have your biological material, and biological material is that you reuse the things that you are not using to eat. You reuse them for biogas, for example. You close your circle also very quickly because you offer your products on a local market. And on the other hand, you have your technical material, and your technical material you have a lot of words. You have the word maintain, you have the word reuse, redistribute, refurbish, recycle. So I'm going to treat all that. We're going to treat about those words because those words can be used in a very local way, in a financial important way, so that here it can be used also. We saw a nice example. My friend Dejan is not here for this morning, but he took me yesterday, Monday, we went to a restaurant in Tirana. And the restaurant is, no, because it was the second restaurant. The restaurant is built, furbished, all with second-hand material. The boss makes the flour himself. He orders grains and he makes the bread himself. The vegetables are coming from the garden. So this is first-hand with as low as possible logistic means and whatsoever. And it's an enormous success because you have to order in advance. So the mindset is there. The young generation understands what it is all. Can I have the next one? So we have new opportunities for innovation, including product design, and we'll talk about that, manufacturing, service, and business models. We have for agriculture and for food, and even for water-intensive sectors where you need to use water a lot, and where you start to close the circuit and reuse your water, purify your water, and you reuse your water. The opportunities for entrepreneurs are going through more chain cooperation, and I will talk about the chain cooperation. It means that entrepreneurs have to talk to each other, and you have to make a chain. The one that supplies the furniture, for example, has suppliers for the metal parts, has suppliers for the wooden parts, and the metal parts are parts that can be reused, remade, rebuilt. Less resource utilization and less waste, of course, because you reuse. Access to new raw materials from waste. We in Flanders, we have, in my province, we had something like 270,000 tons of rest waste. The 270,000 tons are reused by 90%. But that means that you need a market for that. You need the market for waste paper. You need a market for waste plastics. You need a market for waste rubber. The moment the market exists, you can push people in separate, and you can sell that on a very low price, of course. But it is reused, so you do not have to burn it anymore because it is reused. The problem in the south of Europe is that this market doesn't exist yet. And that's what we have to stimulate. That people see that you can reuse plastic, that you can reuse rubber, that you can reuse PET bottles, that you can reuse textile. It strengthens the social and spatial tissue because it's local custom made. It is participatory, and you work, your life, your relaxation is intermixed. And it includes circular use of raw materials for energy generation is also. Can I have? Now, we have the different words, and the first word, can I have one? The first word I'm going to treat is recycling and reconverting. We have the PET bottles. It's known. The PET bottles there is technology to reuse them. That technology is a bit more complicated, but definitely there is technology. They reuse PET bottles, they make little rounds of it, and they use it to put on roads as the bottom of roads. Instead of putting rubble, they put that. It's very stable, and they reuse PET bottles for making roads. They use PET bottles also to make fleeces. Nobody wears fleeces for the moment, but in order not making jackets but fleeces, fleeces are made out of paper. But then we have a nice company close to my home that started as a moving company, and then they had to move offices, and the guys in the offices said, yeah, but we bought new one, then you stock the old stuff. And after 5 years, their entire buildings were filled up with the stuff, and they started to call the companies and to say, can we do something with the stuff? Oh yeah, go ahead, because we don't need that anymore. And they started reusing the offices, reshaping the wood, melting the metal, using the screws again, with designers, with good carpenters. In the moving fraction, they had 40 people employed. In the reuse fraction, they have 80 people employed now. And a lot of offices in the neighborhood, they said, no, we need stuff from them because this is new and this is original and this is authentic. But the mindset is different. Next. Materials? Yeah, okay. Materials. I have a company who is doing roofing. When they are acquainted with the guys that have been putting the roof in, and they say to the guys that put the roof in, if you take off the roofing and put new roofing on it, bring it back. And they remelt the roofing and they reuse the roof. The price is a bit higher, but they propose that. And a lot of people say, yeah, that's a good idea. We're willing to pay a bit higher, but to reuse stuff. You have the nicest example, of course, and this is really an industry. In all the electrical appliances there is gold, there is silver, there is coltan. You have companies now who start to take the gold and the silver and the coltan and the materials out of it and to reuse that. So we are not, they call it secondary mining. It is mining out of existing material. So that is, of course, that is an industry. Fashion now. This is a Belgian designer, and he started with asking for people to bring in their jeans again. So instead of making new jeans, he's making new jeans out of old jeans. So he's reusing the jeans so that he doesn't need to pollute the water anymore. And he's successful. He's successful. Yeah, he can open shops and he can sell his jeans, and he says to the youth, and of course you have two types of youth. You have youth who want to go to Primark and who want the jeans that are made in the most horrible conditions in Bangladesh. But you have youngsters who say, we're willing to pay a bit more, but we don't want to pollute the earth anymore. The same thing with Calvin Gernald in Milan, who makes sophisticated accessories in fashion. So all that comes from existing materials. So next one. Those two is used material put again in the window of a shop. That one is an interesting one, and that is good to know for you. And look at the website. This is a Dutch guy, the Dutch engineer. He made machinery to reuse plastic bags, and the machinery costs between 5,000 and 10,000 euros, not more than that. So you can provide it, and you receive, on top of that, you receive a manual how to do it. These are things that are done already. So you can make cups out of it, you can make new bags out of it, you can make different things out of it. But there is an entire generation now of young creative people who say, we're going to buy one of those machines or a couple of those machines, and we're going to start selling those things not internationally, but nationally, locally, regionally, and to promote that. And there is a mindset in the generation that says, yes, why not? Why are we not using it? Next one. This is what I was talking about, this modularity. If you use screws, you have to be able to reuse the screws. If you use metal elements, you have to be able to reuse the metal elements in another way. That means that you do not make metal poles anymore, but you make metal elements, which you can rebuild as a puzzle, as a Lego. So the modularity is important. Modularity means that you have to have a metal company who is willing to help you and to take it back and to do the redesign and to help you with the design. So you make Lego elements with whom you can rebuild, you can reshape them. Prepare? Yeah, next one. Two examples here. The second one is the easiest one. This is a warehouse, and inside the warehouse is a second-hand shop. So in the warehouse, in the department store, you can buy a lot of things, and you also can buy second-hand things, and second-hand things that are repaired. Recently in Brussels, a shop started in a poshy neighborhood, and in the morning, people bring in clothes they want to sell, and it is a non-profit organization that sells, and in the evening, normally it should be empty again. So people resell their clothes. The one upstairs is pavement, existing pavement that has been reshaped because the pavement was not good anymore for the new utilization of the square. It wasn't heavy enough, so they reshaped the existing pavement so that it was more solid and that it could have more water going through it, but in the same square. So this is reusing the same pavement. Next one. That one is a nice one. These are old benches, stone benches. It gave a very bad impression of the square. So what did they do? They have been putting mosaics around, and they even rose the benches a bit. So you have benches without back and benches with back. But suddenly the same square with the old benches is new. Next. Nello talked about sharing economy. The sharing economy is there also. And sharing economy is for a long time already. DVD rental 50 years ago, video rental, DVD rental, car rental, book rental, and it went down. Then you have bed and breakfast. It's normalized. Bed and breakfast, people are renting one of their rooms. Equipment rental, music and video streaming, car sharing. That starts to be a new trend now. Not using your own car anymore. You go to work, you share cars. People are offering their cars on an app. You can order the car, and you can use the car when you need the car. Peer-to-peer accommodation is the Airbnb. I have a room. I offer it sometimes for rent, and people who want to come to live in Brussels for 8 days, they can have my room through an app. Online staffing is the next one. People are subscribing to that, they have their CVs, and I need a member of staff for a month, and I look through the CVs and I order the guy for a month. And then peer-to-peer lending and crowdfunding is fantastic. It started a couple of years ago. If you see what happens now with crowdfunding, what has been funded already by crowdfunding, it's fantastic. But that is the sharing economy, and the sharing economy is another way of thinking. And Nello has been talking about the electric cars, what is going to happen. What we see in Belgium already is that the largest distributor of Volkswagen is planning to have a fleet of electric cars, self-driven. You do not buy a car anymore, you order a car, and the car comes in front of your door the moment that you need it, drives you where you want, and then drives away. Sharing economy, it's another way of thinking. Leasing? Leasing is not, it's a very extraordinary way of thinking, but it exists. You can lease furniture. That means, like leasing a car, you give the car back at the end of the 5 years and you receive a new car. You can lease computers. That means you give your computer back and you receive another computer. You can do it the same with furniture now. You can lease your furniture, and after 5 years you give your furniture back. They take it back, they reshape it, they take it into pieces, and they make new furniture, and you have new furniture. Carpet, same thing. You can lease carpet. That means at the end the carpet is old. They take the carpet away, but they're not throwing the carpet back away. They put new carpet and they reuse their carpet. Reverse logistics. And you need, if that system exists, that means that the carpet has to be taken back, that the furniture has to be taken back, so that it is not that you do not the logistics for of supplying new furniture. There is also the logistics of taking the old furniture and putting it back in the factory. And that, what's that? Yes, that's reverse logistics. Yeah, this is the plastics. Huh? So the first thing that you have to do, of course, is to take the plastics out of the rest of your waste, and then see what type of plastics it is. If it is PET bottles, it's another use. And my referred colleague said here that there are, how many types of plastic there are?
88,000.
There are 8,000 types. 88,000 types of plastic. But it means that with an eye, with sophisticated photovoltaic, most of the time you're able to determine what it is, and you can reuse most of those plastics. Some of the, reuse means that they are not coming in nature, that you do not burn them. It's better to reuse plastics than to put them in the sea.
Yeah, but can you really?
Yeah?
Can you reuse?
Well, probably the start is that you will identify 5 or 10 and that you reuse those already. And you will have others that you have to burn. Something is happening, that's nice. Textile, same thing. So you start to reuse your old clothes. You start to reuse the materials and the yarn, and to make new yarn out of old yarn. And there is, for example, Ellen MacArthur Foundation, the next one, there is an Ellen MacArthur Foundation that has that as goal, and that is quite successful. So she makes a new global fiber system based upon old fibers. Transport, same thing. Biofuels, the recycling of conventional cars, tires that are recycled, reuse of parts, generators, chassis parts, scarce materials, of course, these are the most successful, but also shared resources. So even in transport, if you are creative, you can create a circular economy and create jobs. Application in the Balkan, all stages of the innovation share, awareness of ideas generation. The youngsters see this, to see the possibilities and let them start generating ideas. Innovation, you have to help them. So, in implementation, including startup and valorization, and then innovation as well in core technology. That means remelting the plastic and doing auxiliary technology, which is the logistics, for example. The earnings must model. You have to earn money. It is not only the social value that counts. It has to be for such a price that people are willing to use it. The product design is very important. And then collaboration models, I think in new economies, pushing people to work together is easier than in our economies. So there has been a model of principles of textile and fashion industry towards the services. This is something that you can find on the internet. But what is important is that if you put that in front of young people, they immediately recognize possibilities. You have to give them an overall framework. Yesterday you gave a framework. That framework triggers ideas. That's the important thing. With Internet of Things, it's the same thing. You give them the framework of all the sectors in which they are already applicable. 26. And what applications there are? 28. So combination 20 times, 26 times 28. And they understand that, and they see immediately, I can do that. What is the role of the local authorities in that? They inspire and bring partners together, businesses, universities, like my referred colleague here yesterday, who it's the businesses, the university schools are pushed, are invited by the local authorities. Local authorities organize separate waste collection. We tried to do it in Croatia, and everybody was of goodwill, but at the end everything went to the landfill because they had no opportunities of using it. I mean, if you separate your waste, you have to be able to use it separately. And at the end, everything went to the landfill. Local authority organized part of the reverse logistics. The post can do that, but they can do it themselves by the collection of waste and putting the waste then in container parks where you have a sort of agreement with companies that come to collect. Local authorities offer shop space in the beginning, shop space for second-hand things that have been repaired for people that are not so wealthy but that want a washing machine, and they buy a 5 years old washing machine but repaired. And local authorities can organize shared economy also, can organize the app to have a location where you can take your car that you are going to use for that. So, what advantages are there? And I'm closing now. Bankers and economists think that it will generate something like $1 trillion a year into using old material into the economy. New jobs in recycling, product design, reverse logistics, manufacturing would be filling the job. Reduced carbon emission due to the take-up of renewable energy by companies. People from Beijing to Paris across the world will breathe a bit better thanks to reduced air pollution and products that are healthier. Next one. Shift from ownership to renting. That will be an important shift, but once we're there, it will be a normal thing. Businesses will be able to supply the growing number of people on the planet without depleting our planetary hope. And the circular economy gives answers to climate, toxicity, raw material scarcity, and energy. Now, the last one, I have a blog also. So on that blog, I write articles on the things I find, on the ideas we have on regional approach and regional development, especially for new economies. This is our role. I mean, the role of the European Academy of the Regions is to translate ideas that are existing in our economies and to try to translate them into the new economies and to see what is feasible, not by promoting globalization and big companies and whatsoever. No, I think very locally. My slogan is local. And when you go for local and you can create that mindset, but creating that mindset is a combination of, as well, local authorities that think like that, universities and schools that think like that, companies that think like that, and the journalists, the civil society, the fourth power in a state, are very important.